What one thing does my history teacher and Diddy have in common? Neither of them are allowed within 500 feet of a school. Now we all know why Diddy ain't allowed near schools, but why is this the case for my teacher? Well, let me explain. So a couple years ago, I had quite possibly the most unique teacher ever. What do I mean by that? Let's just say, she was not afraid to speak her mind. Whatever she was thinking, she would say it. So if she thought you were dumb for not knowing the answer to a question, she'd let you know. I remember one time she was teaching, and the subject she taught was history, by the way. But anyways, during class, a kid raised his hand and asked how Christopher Columbus was able to make it to America if they didn't have planes back then. So she looked him in the eyes and said, "Martin, how did you even make it to this grade?" So she had no filter. She was always just a little different. On the very first day of school, we did icebreakers to get to know each other. So every student had to say one fact about them to the whole class. But after we finished, she wanted to say one. And this was the moment I knew it was going to be a long year, because she stands up and starts to get emotional. My fun fact is that on April 1st, 1998, I'll never forget the date because at first I thought she was saying an April Fool's joke, but she went, "On April 1st, 1998, my husband of 13 years passed away." Well, that was kind of a buzzkill, but she literally just stopped there without saying anything else. So one kid decided to say what the whole class was thinking and goes, "If you don't mind me asking, how did he pass away?" And you could tell she was hoping someone was going to ask that. So she says, "Well, my husband was quite the daredevil. And one day he decided to go skydiving, which he had done plenty of times before. But this day was different because when he tried pulling his parachute, it wouldn't open." Then, with tears literally falling down her face, she goes, "And sadly, he fell all the way to the ground and passed away." Looks like I'm taking that off my bucket list. But obviously, this is super tragic, right? Not funny at all. But when she said this, me and a friend that was in this same class happened to make direct eye contact with each other. So I couldn't help but let out a little laugh. It wasn't because I thought her husband passing away was funny. Of course not. But when you and your homie make eye contact during an awkward situation in class, you have no other option. You're gonna laugh. So after I did, the teacher looks at me thinking I was laughing at her story, and she goes, "Taylor, don't ever disrespect me like that again." Well, first of all, my name is Tyler, but that's not important right now. So after this interaction, she did not like me the whole school year. Any chance she had to get me in trouble, she took it. So it was no surprise that I ultimately was the one who got her fired. But how did this happen, you ask? Just kidding. I know no one was actually asking that. But I'm in my parents' closet and no one's gonna actually ask me the question, so I have to ask them to myself, okay? I wonder what my parents are thinking when they hear me in the closet just screaming to no one. I just know they're out there shaking their head right now thinking, our son's never gonna get a girlfriend. Okay, back to the story though. So how did I get my teacher fired? Well, when the school year first started, she told the whole class this was gonna be her final year of teaching. And after it ended, she was gonna celebrate by going on a month-long cruise in the Caribbean. She also said she was gonna retire the year before, but her students were so bad that she couldn't go out after such a negative year. She was basically trying to have her Kobe tribute season and then sail off into the sunset. Literally. But in reality, it was more like sailing into a volcano the way she went out. Because one day during class, we got on her final nerve. Now, students would always misbehave in her class because she was barely 5 feet tall and not intimidating at all. And because she would always say exactly how she felt, students would troll her all the time because they were just hoping to get a reaction out of her. I can't believe we were rage baiting the teacher. Now that I'm older, I'm embarrassed of how rude we were, but that was just the reality at the time. One time she even told us that her dog passed away, and a student literally responded by saying, "Ruh-roh, don't bring the dog into this, man." By the way, rest in peace, Roxy. Fly high, my girl. So I'm telling you, we were an evil class. I don't even blame her for doing what she did to get fired. But on this particular day, it was even worse because this was the day after the Super Bowl. And she was a huge Bengals fan, but they happened to be one of the teams playing in the game. Now, unfortunately, they lost. So she was more angry than I've ever seen her this day. And I don't want to speculate anything, but by the way she was acting, I'm pretty sure she was hungover. So you could tell that if someone even sneezed the wrong way that day, she was gonna crash out. But because of this, the students were even more motivated to rage bait her now. So the bell rings, class starts, and she tells us to get our notebooks out because we're gonna be taking notes. Now the first thing we did during class this day to make her mad was playing a game called Stick It. Let me explain it to you. So I had a friend in this class who was going through cancer treatments at the time. He's healthy and well now, praise God. But at the time, due to the treatments he was getting, he was bald. It looked pretty dope, I can't even lie. But he hated how people would always show him so much pity for having to go through this and for being bald. So to lighten the mood, he would bring these mini suction cups to school. And he would pass them out to people during class, and basically, the objective of the game was to try throwing these suction cups and landing them on his head. Listen, I know that may sound like an insanely out-of-pocket thing to do to someone who has cancer, and trust me, that's what I thought too. None of us wanted to play at first because we felt so guilty, but he insisted on it. So during class this day, whenever the teacher would turn around towards the board to read the notes, one of us would try throwing the suction cups and landing it on his head. But unfortunately, one person threw the suction cup at just the wrong time because right as he did it, the teacher turned around and caught us. She got super frustrated that we were playing this game rather than paying attention to the notes. So she yelled at the class. She said that if none of us wanted to pay attention to the notes during class, we could all stay after school and do it in detention. It was kind of funny though, because as she was saying this, she would look back and forth between the kid who had cancer and the kid who threw the suction cup, and the kid with cancer would just be sitting there staring at her with a straight face while he had suction cups on his head. It looked like one of those aliens from Toy Story. So she finished her little rant and we promised to stop, so then she continued teaching. But it was the final nail that broke the camel's back. Wait, I don't think that's how the phrase goes actually. It was the final nail in the camel. No, that's not it either. I broke a camel's back. No, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Hey Siri, what's the phrase that goes blah 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 camel's back?
That's a great question. The phrase you're referring to goes like this.
Okay, well, point is, the teacher was fed up with us. As you can see, I'm not lying about the fact that I was not paying much attention in this class. It's probably why I have friends that are currently going to Ivy League schools. Meanwhile, I'm talking to a camera in my parents' closet making Diddy jokes. I just know my parents wish they got a daughter instead. But after my teacher got done beefing with a cancer patient, she went back to presenting the notes. Class was normal for a couple minutes while she was doing this, until I got a text from my friend that said, "You won't throw me piece of gum right now," when she turned around. Now, although that sentence might sound like Patrick Starr wrote it, the reason he was saying it like that is because all my friends have a rule. No matter what the circumstances are, if one of us are dared to do something and we don't want to do it, you have to do it if the other person says you won't. I don't remember how it started, but it's just our rule. So he clearly said this because he knew how flustered the teacher was and he wanted to see if I would do it. And listen, I was still a young kid at the time. My frontal lobe hasn't fully developed yet. It still hasn't. It probably never will. So my brain is fried. But because of this, I was up for the challenge. Although we didn't sit close to each other at all in this class. He was literally on the other side of the room. So I knew I was gonna have to throw an absolute dime to make it to him accurately. I'm talking like a LeBron James level pass. I love you, LeBron. But I had no other choice. I had to do it because he said you won't. So we make eye contact and I show him that I'm pulling out the gum and we both kind of nod to each other like it's go time. So I give the gum wrapper a kiss, hoping that it's gonna go exactly where I want it to. And just like that scene in Talladega Nights where they're running to the finish line in slow motion, with all the power I have, I launched the piece of gum. It felt like I was looking at that thing in the air for 5 hours. But unfortunately, the millisecond that gum left my hand, I knew it wasn't going where I wanted it to. Matter of fact, it wasn't even close. So what? The gum didn't make it. It will just land on the floor and the teacher won't notice, right? Well, that would have been the case if it didn't hit her in the head. Bruh. And I don't know what in The Exorcist happened after that, but she was somehow able to turn her head what felt like 270 degrees. And she did it super quickly right after it happened. This is how she looked.
Who threw that?
Obviously, all the students snitch on me right away because they saw that look in her eyes and they knew that I was probably about to be put on the back of a milk carton. So they didn't want any part of that. And I don't blame them. But after she realized I was the one who did it, I blinked and all of a sudden she was right at my desk. She then puts her hand down right in front of me and you could tell she just wanted to grab my head and start bouncing it like a basketball. She was clenching her fists to the point where they were shaking. She was putting all her anger into it. But then, in a moment of clarity, after a few seconds, she stops. She was able to calm herself down, and instead of pulling a Will Smith at the Oscars on me, she walks back over to her desk without saying anything. Knowing I just narrowly escaped my demise, I exhale thinking I'm safe. I thought she calmed down and realized that she shouldn't do anything crazy because it's not worth it. But as she's about to go back to teaching, she turns toward the whole class and decides that she does want the smoke today. She wasn't gonna take any more disrespect from a kid who peed his pants in 10th grade. Not me, it just happened to be a kid who looked a lot like me. Anyways, she starts screaming at the class. She's pointing out students individually, basically saying why they all suck, including me. She got me good too, I can't even lie. She said it was amazing how much I talked during class without saying anything useful. She ain't wrong, but she's going on this rant about everyone in this class. And not only is she saying how bad of students we are, but she's cursing like crazy while doing it. And without her knowing, one kid recorded this whole crash out. He went to the office and showed the video to the principal. So literally the next day, we walk into class and the principal is waiting there with the teacher. Once the bell rings, the teacher individually apologizes to all of us for everything she said. Clearly only because the principal made her do it. And then the principal tells us that we're gonna have a substitute for the day. But this substitute just ended up being our normal teacher for the rest of the year. So I don't know if our regular teacher just ended up sailing into the sunset after this like she wanted, but the one thing I do know is that this could have all been avoided if the Bengals just won the dang Super Bowl.